Hi, students in ETH 100, Ethnic and Indigenous Lives. This is Luis Mendoza, your instructor. This is a lecture on identity and power for your second week of class that I wanted to share with you, mostly to inform your thinking and be provocative and how you might make connections between the readings this week and your own lives so that you can begin to apply it in different ways. I'm not providing a PowerPoint or a video that goes into great detail because I introduce you to a bunch of new concepts, because I don't really want to expect to test you on these. I want you to just listen and give some thought and reflection on these ideas. So in this brief lecture, I'll focus on three questions. How have your ideas, beliefs, and assumptions been shaped by your identities and experiences? How are different identities shaped by power and privilege? How can you use new understandings of your social location as a basis for empathy and, in some cases, action? If one of the goals of this class is to more fully understand how race and ethnicity function in our society, understanding our own identities in relation to these topics can be an important first step. Critical learning about who we are and the various ways in which our identities are constructed can contribute to a rich sense of personal fulfillment, and furthermore, it can help us make the intellectual connection between our own lives and the lives of others in the world. Each of us has a complex identity that is rooted in human differences such as gender, class, race, sexuality, disability, religion, nationality, age, and ethnicity. The ways in which all of these various categories intersect with and inform our individual lives makes us unique. Locating oneself or understanding one's social location is a concept that encourages us to look at the historical and social components of our identities, including how we came to be the person we are. For example, how might a 19-year-old Asian American woman begin to locate herself? She might do this by reflecting upon the myriad components of her identity and thinking about her history, that is, her family, her racial identity, her community, and how they inform her present. She can begin to recognize how her identity shapes her ideas, beliefs, and assumptions about diverse issues on both the local and global level. She might forge links between her identity and other people whom she might or might not know. These links could take the form of reading a novel about a Pakistani daughter and reflecting on her own experience as a daughter, or thinking about her own middle-class experiences in Seattle or Phoenix in relationship to poverty in, say, Haiti. Think about your own personal history and the life experiences that have influenced the development of your identities over time. How do you identify yourself in relationship to race, class, gender, and so forth? Have some of these identities been more important at one stage of your life or another? Why? Have any of these identities given you access to privilege or been used to limit you in any way? Can you imagine how others might answer those questions? Would they answer them the same as you? Why or why not? When we begin to realize that all identities are complex and varied, including our own, our methods of investigating other perspectives and viewpoints are enhanced and developed. This kind of intellectual expertise can easily be translated into daily skills. For instance, questioning the media's representation of a country or people, or listening more carefully to classmates or friends who seem different than us. All of us are members of various groups, although no membership is static and constant. Our memberships in groups or categories may change over time. It may be voluntary, and it can offer us solidarity and camaraderie, or it may seem forced and unyielding like a too tight pair of shoes. Based on how we understand ourselves and our identities, we form alliances with others, or we decide to distance ourselves from others. Locating ourselves in society and history often yields comparisons and hierarchies between people's experiences. If someone has been raised in a wealthy community, for example, we can begin to understand how various class privileges might have threaded together to create an economic safety net for this person. These experiences of privilege might differ greatly from those of someone who was raised in a working class home, and consequently inform these two people's lives and perspectives in distinctive ways. Critically understanding our identity also means being cognizant and reflective of the privileges and power inherent in all of our lives. As you begin to become aware of the range of identities belonging to each of us, ask yourself, are there identities that are privileged over others? For example, think of the societal supports available for men and how these might be different for women. How are particular group identities strengthened and maintained by society? And how are other identities constructed as improper? For instance, how do we reconcile our nation's ideals of equality and liberty with our nation's history of slavery or dual wage laws that made it okay to pay people of color a lower wage for the same work done by whites, or Jim Crow laws that forbade certain groups from drinking from public water fountains, using public swimming pools, sharing movie theaters, living in certain parts of town, or eating in the same restaurants as whites? What happens to these distinctions when we begin to consider the intersection of identities? That is, when a person simultaneously inhabits both identities that are privileged and disadvantaged. For example, an upper middle class white woman occupies both an advantaged position, such as her class background, and a disadvantaged identity, such as her gender, if that's held against her and limits her opportunities in the world. So I ask that you think about these in very concrete ways in relationship to the readings and do some reflection. Thank you.